Thanks for taking the time and sharing it with us. My name's Roberta Martindale, and I'm faculty and an alumnus of the program, and I'm the program coordinator. And I know Rhonda's also an alum as well.
Yep, for sure. So yeah, both graduates of this program. And we're super happy that you could join us tonight. And we're super happy to be here. Before we get right into it, we always just like to acknowledge that our university is located on Treaty 6 territory, and respects the histories, languages, and cultures of First Nations, Métis, Inuit, and all First Peoples of Canada, whose presence enriches our vibrant communities. On a personal note, I'm really grateful to live, work, and play on these traditional lands. So, all right. So, before we get started, what is your first impression when you think about somebody who works in a lab? Give you a second just to think about that. Conjure up an image in your brain about what you think this person would look like. All right, got it? Is it this? Could be that. How about this? That might be what you think of when you think of a scientist or a lab person. And this is a more modern depiction of what you may have pictured in your head. But what if I told you that lab professionals are more like this? So this is Dr. Susan Naherniak, who graduated in the 1990s from our program and went on to medical school. And they also look like this. This is Hardeep Gill, who is one of our instructors and also maintains a casual position in hematology. And what about this? This is Eugene Chung, who is the head of molecular diagnostics lab. And as you can see, gone are the days of the lab stereotypes. So do you see yourself in any of these people? Either Susan, Hardeep, Eugene, myself, Roberta. So now that you know that there is no mold for the typical lab professional, what do we actually do? Okay, we don't look like what you think, but do you know what we do? People constantly ask us, are you a nurse? No. Are you a doctor? No. I actually thought about getting us t-shirts made that say, no, I'm not a nurse, or no, I'm not a doctor, because there is a lot of confusion because we do wear lab coats. So what do we do? Well, when your doctor, nurse, pharmacist, or other health professionals looking for answers, they typically turn to lab tests. I'm sure many of you have gone to get your blood drawn, had to pee in a cup. Maybe you have a family member that has needed some medical care and you've seen specimens collected from that family member. So basically what we like to say is that the clinicians have the questions and we have the answers. So oftentimes we're the foundation of care. 60 to 70% of patient care decisions are based on our results. And at least 80% of guidelines, which are aimed at establishing a diagnosis or managing disease, require lab testing. So not only are we there for other healthcare professionals, we're there for you as a patient. This is a poster that was created by the Canadian Society for Medical Lab Science, which we call the CSMLS for short, who is our national certifying body for med lab technologists and assistants, and the National Professional Society for Canada's Medical Laboratory Professionals. This message highlights that we are the hidden hero in everyone's healthcare journey. Highly trained medical professionals sort, analyze, and run tests on your samples and provide accurate results that are vital to your healthcare. We see patients like no one else does. We're there for you. We're there for your mom. We're there for your dad, your brother, your sister, cousin, child, partner, friend. We're there for you. So how do we do this? There are 5 main areas of the lab where lab professionals work. Anatomical pathology, which often is called histology, chemistry, hematology, microbiology, and transfusion medicine. So we're going to tell you a little bit more about each of these 5 areas. So in the pathology lab, we work with body tissues. So have you ever wondered where your tonsils went after they were removed, or your appendix, or anything else that got taken out during surgery? One of the most common things that we look for is the presence of cancer in these tissues. So if somebody goes for surgery to get a tumor removed, that tumor will come to us in the anatomical pathology lab, and we will run tests on that tissue. Next is clinical chemistry. So testing is done typically on fluids like the liquid part of your blood, which is the serum or plasma, joint fluids, so which is called synovial fluid. So if they suck fluid out of your knee, that would be that. Urine, feces. There's even something called the urea breath test that's done in chemistry, where we actually measure urea in your breath, believe it or not. So one common test that you've probably heard of before is a fasting blood glucose for diabetes, and that's commonly done in clinical chemistry. All right, hematology is the study of the solid bits in your blood. So the cells, we look at red cells, white blood cells, and platelets. There are many conditions that are identified and monitored in the hematology lab, including blood cancers. A common test that you may have had in the past is a hemoglobin test for anemia. So people who are low in iron, it can often be detected based on the amount of hemoglobin in the red blood cells. So microbiology, I'm sure you know all about microbiology because it's been in the news since late 2019. It involves the search and identification of microorganisms. So when COVID first emerged, laboratories in Alberta led the way in creating and implementing testing to detect the presence of the coronavirus. So those were lab techs that were doing that. So another common test is a throat swab looking for the presence of strep. So in the case of strep throat. All right, and last but certainly not least, transfusion science. So this is a specialty area of hematology as it still deals with the blood, but is more specifically the use of blood as a life-saving gift. So we test whether a donor can donate and whether a person in need can receive a blood product that the donor donated. So you might know somebody in your life who donates blood. We get those blood products, we test them, and we distribute them so they can be given to the patients. All right, so why else would you want to go into medical lab science? Why else would you want to be part of this profession? So aside from all those cool things that we just showed you, I am going to put a quote from our landing page in the chat. I can do that, right? I think I can. All right. So just, you can click on that, but basically MLS grads enjoy a great paying career with an excellent work-life balance. They're in high demand across Canada, and they have the potential to live and work in the USA and abroad. So Roberta used to work in Hawaii. Like, can you believe it? It's pretty amazing. And we've had a number of grads that have worked abroad. One that we're still in contact with, she runs the HLA lab, and she worked in Ireland, where she got her master's degree after taking our program, because our program is very transportable. You can go work almost anywhere with our program. So why else? Well, the average wage is about $44 per hour. The average yearly salary is about $74,000. Average work week is about 32 hours a week. It depends on where you go and what you do. So you have heard about the interesting things that we do on daily at work, and you've heard about the practical aspects: salary, work-life balance, exciting travel opportunities. But I don't want you to take my word for it. So let's take a moment to listen to some students. Oh, my link is gone. One moment, I will find my link. Sorry, there's a video that was in here and it's gone. It disappeared. There we go. Let me know that, Roberta, you can see it, right? Yes, okay, cool.
See it?
Can you hear it? Can you hear it?
No.
Yes. One moment. My apologies. There we go. Let's try this again.
Yep.
Good morning, everybody. Come spend a day with me as a Year 4 student in the MLS program. So this particular day was a Thursday, and so I wore scrubs because I had to TA. And here is just me packing my lunch and saying goodbye to my cat. And I've reached the promised land, which is the MLSA Echo Lounge. It's where a lot of us study, hang out, eat, and whatnot. And this day was very busy for me. Besides TAing, I also had to perform phlebotomy, which if you don't know what that means, that's just collecting blood, something that we performed within 2 days of being in the program. And I also had to do an Instagram takeover for the Medical Laboratory Students Association, which I am the president of. So follow us on Instagram if you haven't to get in the know of the happenings in the MLS program. Not captured here, but I actually also played rec volleyball on this day. So don't let all these studying clips fool you. We have a ton of fun here. We're MLS students. Of course you have a favorite bacteria. Mine's Pseudomonas. Smells like grapes. We're MLS students. Of course we follow our recipes just like we do our procedures. Add 1 cup of flour. Beaten or folded? We're MLS students. Of course we have to go down to eye level to check our measurements. Okay, so we just need a half cup of water for the broth. All right. That's good. Whoa. A little bit more. Oh gosh. We're MLS students. Of course our laptops are covered in lab stickers and our humor has been overtaken by lab memes. We're MLS students. Of course we're a tight-knit group who eat, study, and hang out together.
Join the MLS crew.
I'm Priscilla, and this is my day as a fourth-year MLS student. So start off my day out with my cure and comfy MLS sweater, then I head off to eat some breakfast. And then I started studying for my midterm and immunology class, so if you like learning about the immune system, I highly recommend you take it. After studying, I take some time to do my research project, which is on social media in the medical laboratory community. And by now, it's around noon. I'm starting to head to campus to go to my one and only class on Thursdays, which is Advanced Hematology. Hi, Jenica. Here's some views. Hi, Duba. Anyways, so my Advanced Hematology class is presentation-based. All of us discuss and present on different blood disorders, so if you're interested in that too, I highly recommend it. It's super interesting. By now it's 4 p.m. I eat hot pot, and then head back home to study for my midterm again. And here are my cute little nerds. Yup. That was my fun little day in MLS. Thank you. Bye-bye.
So, I'm in my last year of undergrad and I'll be graduating with an MLS degree in the spring. But what's MLS? Great question. MLS stands for Medical Laboratory Science. It's a really tight-knit program for people who love science, problem solving, and hands-on learning. In high school, I always knew that I wanted to end up in healthcare and working closely with patients. A couple of years into university, I decided to apply to this program after researching. I went through the whole process and luckily, I got in. Laboratory technologists have a great work-life balance and are in high demand everywhere. And I mean, it's really just cool to say you work in a lab. It's been a rewarding past few years and I'm really glad to have been surrounded by some really awesome people. So, if you really like science and want to be a part of the fun, then you're more than welcome to join us in the lab.
I think I found the first victims. Excuse me? Excuse me. What's your name? I'm Abby. Priscilla. Have you guys ever heard of MLS?
Nor. Did someone say MLS?
What's MLS? So have you guys ever gotten your blood taken?
Yes.
So basically, what we do with that blood is we look at it under a microscope and do further additional testing. How does that sound to you?
Nice.
Cool?
Nice.
So Medical Laboratory Science is a 4-year professional program offered at the U of A. If you want more information, check the link below and become a lab tech like me.
Okay, we're gonna find our next victim. Hi, what's your name?
I'm Abby.
Have you ever heard of MLS?
I've never heard of MLS before.
Have you ever gotten your blood taken before?
I have.
So do you know what those people do?
No, actually.
So actually, we're in the lab and we analyze your blood and like find out what kind of blood cells you have and like what count and everything. Do you find that interesting?
So interesting.
It's a 4-year program at U of A, and we're at U of A right now. So what are you doing right now?
Oh, just a general science. I'm in my first year, actually.
First year, perfect. You can finish your prerequisites and then get straight into MLS once you apply.
Wow.
Of
I
course.
didn't know that.
Nice to knowing you. Bye.
Bye.
So that was just a sample of some of our students from last year who we set up a contest where they would make TikTok-like videos. Some of them actually did post them on social media, so that was wonderful. But it's good to hear from them and not just us, because of course we love it here. So we're going to tell you all the good things. But the students who have just been through a very difficult program can tell you how rewarding it is based on the videos that you just saw. So, and they also have a lot of fun, I have to say. So, all right. So now what? And you know what, Roberta, why don't you take this part and I'll click through for you. Okay.
Okay. Sounds good. Thanks, Rhonda. Yeah, I think our students had an awesome time making those videos, and it's been great to watch them. So I hope you've enjoyed the presentation so far. And I'm going to cover a little bit of the basics of what it takes to potentially get into the program. So as step 1 says, get into the U of A. You're doing your courses here, fantastic. You can do courses from outside. The big thing is just make sure that they're equivalent. And if you're applying, it is the applicant's responsibility to make sure that outside courses are equivalent. So if you decided, I'm going to take Biochemistry 200, which we do require in the program at Athabasca, just make sure that it's equivalent to the U of A's Biochemistry 200. Next step, take those prerequisite or pre-professional courses. And the next slide will take us to what those are. So in those 10 courses, you need a 2.7 GPA minimum overall to apply. So for English, sometimes the question I'll get is, do I need 2 English or ENGL courses, or can I do a writing studies, a WRS course? You can do 1 English and 1 WRS course. You just need to make sure that the WRS course will be accepted. Some of them are not. So again, that's part of the applicant's responsibility. There's also 6 credits in inorganic, or what we call general chemistry, 3 organic, 3 in cell biology, 3 in molecular genetics and heredity, and that's something like biology 207, if you're here at the U of A, for example. Science or math, and if you think about the Faculty of Science here at the University of Alberta or the U of A, pretty much anything from that faculty that's a science. So you could have Paleo 200, you could have a computing science course, or you could have a math course like linear algebra or calculus, for example. Stats, so if you think about Stats 151, for example, that would certainly qualify as stats. And then any option, any faculty, it really can be anything from any faculty. What the register will do is they will look at, after they've taken all of these other 9 courses into account, they will look at the next highest grade, any option, any faculty, and consider that. So the next set of steps is make sure you apply. One of the issues that sometimes people will run across is they say they can't find us under science, just under a Bachelor of Science. You actually have to look for us under professional programs, and you'll find us under the Faculty of Medicine and Dentistry. And then you'll find our program under the BSc in Medical Laboratory Science. There is another program, and that's the post-professional certification. Do not pick that unless you are already a practicing medical lab technologist. So you would just pick the straight Bachelor of Science in Medical Laboratory Science. The applications open on October 1st every year in the fall, and then they close that next April 1st. So that deadline is coming up April 1st. Submit your letter of intent before May 1st. And then in usually late May, early June, we hold interviews on Zoom with candidates whose applications are still live or valid in the system. And just a note about the letter of intent, I'm just going to put up in the chat. There's a link here, a little bit more about the letter of intent. So feel free to take a look at that. And if you're successful and you get into the program, you're offered admission. Your 3-year journey begins with us. And in that first year, you're going to learn the basics of medical laboratory science, or what we call MLS for short. And you'll also learn things like communication, maybe in a different way than you've been practicing. There's the concepts and the culture of professionalism. You have a nice, relatively small cohort that you get to know and work with. And you spend a lot of time in lab. And yes, we're quite right. Usually within that first week, you learn how to take blood from each other by venipuncture. So it's always a hit in the first week. And in year 3, it's a year-long clinical rotation, and that's through the 5 disciplines and also blood collections. And you'll be out in various hospital sites throughout the Edmonton zone, as far out, say, as St. Albert, Stony Plain, Leduc, Fort Saskatchewan, out in those areas as well. And we're hoping to expand that over time. So that's a year-long clinical rotation, 5 disciplines, but it's not just going out into the labs, into the workplace and working with technologists and lab assistants. You also come back for quizzes, exams, assignments, projects, presentations, tutorials. So they are 5 university courses rolled into that year. You just do them one at a time. And in year 4, that's the advanced medical laboratory science courses. So things like toxicology, advanced chemistry, hematology, parasitology, which was one of my favorite courses. I still have my lab book. It's very, very labby and geeky, but it was a fun course. I think, unfortunately, they just have demos now and not the full lab, but we do offer some courses as well in advanced microbiology, as well as there are shortened courses in mass spectrometry and flow cytometry that you can take as well. Also, your own research project. So you're going to work with a researcher and you're going to potentially work on a project that they've started or an addition that you make. And sometimes these might be method or instrument validations, and it might be something that actually goes into practice in the clinical laboratory. It could be data analysis. So it's really a wide range of things. So it's always enjoyable for us to watch the students grow as they do their research projects. And also when it comes time for them to present their posters and they get to tell us about what they've done over the year or half year. Okay, I guess that takes us almost to the end. I know we can certainly open it for questions. And I think our very last slide also has the QR code on it. And there's our vanity or our shortened, how do you get to us for the MLS website, uab.ca/MLS. You can also email us at our email and we can pop that in the chat. And I read those Monday to Friday as the program coordinator. So I'm just going to pop that right in now. There we go. And I see we have a couple of open questions. And the first one is about a letter of intent. Do you send it in during the year you're taking your prerequisites or prior to attending? Okay, so recruitment events is going to answer that one. Thank you. Now, in terms of taking courses for spring or summer, let's see here, you would need to complete them by the end of spring term. And there's a bit of I won't say a caveat with that, but if you take a spring course and it's one of your pre-professionals here at the University of Alberta, that's fine. The document deadline for official transcripts to the Office of the Registrar is June 15th at the latest. The University of Alberta courses will meet those. If, say, you took something outside the university at another institution, they may still be in class at that time, and the transcript would reach the register beyond the June 15th deadline. So unfortunately, your application would be denied. So I'd say if you're doing them here at the U, at the latest by the end of spring term. And next Tio's got this one, a high school student who's going to apply for biochemistry.
I can answer the next one, the
Yeah.
clinical rotation if you want. Yeah, so that's a really
Yeah.
great question. The clinical rotation, you will be expected to do some different shifts. So we don't make you do nights, but we do make you do evenings. So yeah, not weekends though. We don't have any weekends at this moment in time, but just be prepared that it could happen. It just depends on the space availability at our clinical partner sites. But mostly Monday through Friday, and it could be anywhere from 6 in the morning to 11 or 12 at night, depending, but they're no longer than 8 hours at a time. So you're not going to have to be there for 12 hours or anything. And they can be anywhere.
Yes. No, that's perfect. Thanks, Rhonda. And I just answered one, typed in an answer, and it was for the cell biology. You don't have to take cell 201. You can take biology 107, and that will work just fine. From Chloe, can the pre-professional courses be done over 2 years or 1.5 instead of 1? Yes, they certainly can be. It's in the calendar, it says it's preferred, and that's because our first year, if you have not taken physiology 210 or equivalent, which if you are taking your courses in more than 1 year, we would recommend doing that as well as taking your biochemistry 200. It's actually 37 credits of course weight in our first year. So it's pretty heavy. So you can take it over a year and a half, 2 years. During that time, make sure you consider keeping those GPAs high, both your overall and your pre-professional GPA. But then you can take courses like physiology, biochemistry. You'll notice if you go to our program of courses in the calendar, that in year 4, there's an arts option, an MLS option, and a potential science option. So if you have those courses, you don't necessarily have to take them in the program. If they're transferable, the grades are good, then I can transfer in those credits, and that's fine. And let's see, if you're finishing your undergrad in April, Bachelor of Science, you can still apply over the MLS degree. So I'm not sure if that's linked into the answer that I just gave. Yes, some of those options are science MLS options. If you've taken Biochem 200, fantastic. And you've passed the course, those can transfer over.
So can I answer that question about declaring?
Absolutely, Rhonda.
Yeah, I don't know if you can declare a minor, so I can't answer that part of it. So I'll answer the other part, and then Roberta can take it away about the minor. But are you able to specialize? Most people, when they start working as a lab tech, you specialize in an area that interests you the most. When you're taking the program, you're a general lab tech. But when you get into year 4, if there's something that really interests you, we do have some advanced courses. So we do have an advanced hematology course, for example, and we do have a transfusion medicine graduate program that you can do after this bachelor's. So if hematology, like transfusion medicine is kind of like a subgrouping of hematology. So if you like blood, then that might be something that you want to do after. But you can definitely take that advanced course, and you can definitely focus your area of expertise once you start working. For example, myself, I went and I worked in anatomical pathology, and I specialized in immunohistochemistry, which is a way to test tissues for cancer using immunological techniques. So that's where my area of specialty lies. And then there's other people who go on to do something a little bit more general, which is great too. I mean, it's a fabulous experience. I think, Roberta, you did a variety of things when you worked in Hawaii. Is that correct?
I did. I started out in microbiology, and then I went back to being a generalist, and then I went on to being a lab manager.
There you go.
So you can do a lot with it.
Yeah. For sure.
And in terms, thanks, Rhonda, in terms of the minor, there is no major or minor within the degree. it's the straight degree. So you don't have to declare major or minor with this particular degree.
I can also answer the private lab question.
Sure.
So we've had lab fluctuates in terms of whether it's privatized or not. And there are some private labs that exist within a public healthcare system that are maybe not necessarily related to healthcare, or might be related to a different type of healthcare. So the difference is like whether you're really involved in the health and care system, or if you're doing something a little bit more esoteric. There is a lady that I know who is a grad of the program who works in something called the Mohs Clinic, and a Mohs Clinic is a dermatology clinic that's private, and she does frozen sections where she slices thin slices of people's skin disorders onto slides so that the dermatologist can look at it immediately. So it's actually kind of an interesting way to apply your degree. So how would you compare the two? They're probably similar in terms of compensation. So you're probably making around the same amount of money. Typically, the privatized labs don't typically have a union involved. Some do, some don't. It just depends. So when you would go to apply for a job like that, you would just have to look at whether the job itself suited your needs. But yeah, it's always fluctuating. When I was a student, we had a private lab and a public lab working in Alberta at the same time, existing in Alberta. It's not really like that right now. It's now back to Alberta Precision Labs, which is like the public lab entity in all of Alberta.
Great, thanks, Rhonda. So I've got Chloe's question here. If you've completed some of those pre-professional courses at a different university and they do transfer, if you want to finish those last courses at the U of A, you could go into any faculty really, but a lot of students come to us from the Faculty of Science. Competitive average from Shaylin. I'll give you the two of them. Of course, the minimum 2.7 in the pre-professional courses. And if you go to the university website, it's 3.0. And for the overall GPA for competitive, I would recommend keeping your overall GPA at least a 3.0.
Oh, let me answer this one.
Okay.
So the job outlook is very good. There's about a 30% vacancy rate for jobs in Alberta Precision Labs right now. And that's just in Alberta. The lab tech world is growing smaller because people are retiring. And so there's this like big gap that needs to be filled. And also, as people retire, they require more lab testing. As we age, we have to go to the doctor a lot. So yes, the job outlook is very good. I interviewed the CEO of Alberta Precision Labs. She's also an alumnus of our program. Her name is Tammy Hofer, and she's a lovely lady. And she just said, tell them that if they graduate, they will have a job. That is exactly what she says. I think her video is actually up on our website. So if you want to kind of hear what she has to say from the employer perspective, you can watch that video. And she's very clear. They will have a job. So yeah, you don't have to worry about jobs with this profession. And as mentioned in the presentation, this particular degree takes you pretty much anywhere you want to go. So if you're tired of being in Alberta, you're tired of the snow, and you want to go work in Hawaii like Roberta did, then you can do that. So yeah.
No, for sure. Thanks, Rhonda. I'm just going to jump to the one above. You can jump directly into the career field after you finish. You can choose to go on to further education. So what I did is for example, went out and I worked, and then there was a job back here to teach in the faculty. I came back, I did my master's part-time while I was teaching full-time in the Faculty of Education here at the University of Alberta. And then that was my further education, but it doesn't stop there for us as medical lab technologists and educators, it's lifelong learning. So to work in Alberta through our college, part of what we have to do is we have to do continuing education. Every year we have to set goals for ourselves. So it's fun in that way because it keeps you active. And it's always exciting learning new things in the lab because things change so quickly. It's absolutely fast. And I think it's getting faster in a lot of the different areas in particular.
Yeah.
And if you choose to do additional education, you might do a management stream. You could do an MBA, for example. You might choose to take a bit of a side route and say you really like, things like infection control. Maybe you do an advanced degree in that or public health. Or we even have an alumnus who comes back and lectures for us, and he's a health law lawyer. So he's done something a little bit different, but still related to lab. So you don't have to get it beginning, when you start to work, but maybe you decide in a few years you want to go back and do some extra advanced education for sure.
Yeah. I'm going to take the licensing question. So after you're licensed or after you write your CSMLS exam, yes, you can work across the country at this moment in time. That is part of it. So yes, you can definitely do that. Right now, CSMLS exams are recognized across the entire country. So if you write and are successful writing your CSMLS exam, which just shows the world that, yes, I did take this program and yes, I am good at this and whatnot, you can work anywhere in Canada. When you go to the US, there is a US exam, which we actually it's not like we do a lot, but we kind of help prepare you in terms of what you need to do in order to do that. So Roberta is a wealth of knowledge and can help you if that is something that you choose to do once you complete the program. And then I also see what is the difference between this education and that of NAIT? So that's a great question. So the difference is that NAIT is a diploma program. It's 2 years. It's a good program. There's nothing wrong with the NAIT program. Okay, so if you want to do that, go for it. But I'm going to say that I used to coordinate both the NAIT and the MLS students into their clinical placements at the same time. The difference is that our program is more about critical thinking, problem solving, troubleshooting, and research. Okay, so we give you the basics of how to be a lab tech, but we give you more. Plus, you graduate with a degree. So you're getting more bang for your buck for coming to our program. You have access to world recognized researchers that can help you with research projects that you're not going to find anywhere else. We're one of only 2 degree programs in the country for medical lab science. And it's just, a lot of it is also alumni, like the connections you make and the people that you meet and the opportunities that are opened up to you by having this particular program. We have a great reputation for producing amazing grads. You can't see it, but just well, you can kind of see it up here. There's pictures on the wall. We have pictures that go back to 1962 of people who have graduated from this program. And most of them we know, like they're just out there and they're doing great work. So there is that reputational factor as well.
I'm just gonna jump in here, let you guys take a drink of water if you need it. So a couple of questions that I'm presuming are from the same person. So as a high school student, what classes should I be trying to take before I apply to the U of A? Great question, because you need to be adequately prepared. So you're going to be looking at taking your courses in grade 12, at least in English, mathematics, biology, and chemistry. If you're in Alberta, that's going to be the 30-1 stream, so the highest level that you can get. You will need a 5th class to actually apply to the U of A, but we're not going to be picky on what that 5th class is. So as long as you've got those 4 classes, you'll definitely be setting yourself up for success. And then in terms of what program under the Faculty of Science should you apply to, you have a bit of flexibility with that just because under the Faculty of Science you would be applying for a Bachelor of Science, but you can actually pick a major in undeclared, for example. So you don't actually have to pick between biology or chemistry or biochemistry or anything like that, because your intention would be to leave that program for medical laboratory science after 1 year. So really anything in the Faculty of Science will keep your options open in terms of the correct course registration and things like that, but which major you pick will not have influence on the outcome, for example, of your application to the MLS program.
The interview is virtually, and it's usually with one of us as faculty members. And yeah, we found that that actually works quite well. It allows for some more flexibility for both faculty and applicants.
Yeah, and we record the interview, and then to reduce bias, we have people who grade the interviews that are not the person who did the interview in the first place. So yeah.
So what do we look for during the interview? Well, I'd probably say, without giving away too much information on the applicant or what we call multiple mini interviews, probably one of the biggest things would be communication. How does the person communicate? And we know there's different forms of communication. So everything from, what people say to how they say it, even to body language, that type of thing. But I would probably say one of the biggest things is communication. The other important thing to think about, I guess, during the interview is we do ask applicants to read a suitability form. What makes you suitable to be an MLT, medical lab technologist? What makes you suitable to be in the program? So that's something to think about even, before you do the interview. Did you want to add anything onto that, Rhonda?
If you want to, most programs nowadays are using MMI or something similar. So I would look up multiple mini interviews and just do some research on that to see kind of what it generally is, because you may not have heard of that terminology before and it's kind of too long for us to answer it, but look it up because it is a very specific form of interviewing, usually scenario type questions. So just have a look at that and that will help you. Yeah, that's the only thing I have to add. What do we look for? I don't know. We look for, good communication.
Teamwork, reflection,
confidence,
empathy. What else
honesty.
Can I think of? Yep, honesty, organization.
Don't make stuff up.
Yeah, no.
Don't make stuff up.
No,
Like,
do not make things up.
And that's
sure.
okay.
Yeah, and it is okay to say, I'm really not sure, but you might have something that you can bring in that relates, and that's fine. If you actually take a look at our website, there is a section for interviews, and it actually says what the questions will assess the applicants on. And then there's a little bit on preparation and even a sample question as well. Let's see, how many students applied last year?
Was it 81?
Yeah, it's about 81. Usually we give a rough number, but around 80, 81. It depends on the year in terms of how many are selected for the program. Usually the quota is 29. However, in the last couple of years, we have selected more students because we have had some grants. And I don't know if you want to answer that more specifically, Rhonda.
Yeah, so for this year and this coming year, so the 2025-2026 intake year, we will be offering 38. I think it's 38 seats. It all fluctuates depending on the funding. Yeah. So if lab techs are so in demand, why are so few accepted? Because of funding. So that's a very good question. So a lot of what we're talking about now is based on funding. So if the government does not give us enough money for extra students, then we don't get the funding. But we did get funding because the government has recognized that there is a gap. So yeah, very good question. Why are so few accepted? Because we need to be able to educate you, and it costs money to do that. So yeah, and especially lab,
Yeah.
because you're going through probably 500 pairs of gloves a day. So just gloves
Yes.
alone.
Yes, it's a glove budget.
Yeah, so it's a glove
Um,
budget. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think too that, you know, when we think about our clinical partners, they only have so many training spots. So if you think about Edmonton, it's not only our MLS students who are out training, it's also the NAIT students,
Yeah.
even though they do go to other places as well. So we have to get all of the students from both programs trained in capacity, and they have to pass their competencies. So we have to ensure that we have clinical places for them.
Yeah, and it's kind of a double-edged sword because they need people to work, but they have very few people, and so it's harder for them to train the students. So it's kind of like, yeah, it's a catch-22. So what great questions. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no, these are great. The questions are good, and they always get us thinking about things maybe in a different way or something new that we've learned that we can share. Absolutely.
Roberta, did you maybe want to share which class was your favorite when you were in the degree, or which classes you're teaching now?
Okay, let's see. I did teach clinical chemistry in the clinical year, and I very much enjoyed that. That was good. I've taught histology, the microanatomy section, for a long time. That was actually one of my very favorite classes when I was a student, and I remember exactly where I sat in the year 2 lab because the lab is pretty much the same. So that tells you how old the lab is. And I also get a chance to teach and coordinate in a senior lab management course. So that's also a lot of fun because a lot of our alumni and different people get to come back and present to the students, and we have career panel discussions, and it's really quite an enjoyable course. And then not every year necessarily, but hopefully most years I get to help and participate in student research projects, which again is a wonderful experience to watch the students grow. So yeah, thank you so much.
Rhonda, did you want to share as well before we close off?
Sure, there's one more question, but I will share real quick. So I hated hematology until I got into my year 3, and then I loved it. And so your perspective can change. But my favorite was microbiology because at that time, micro has changed a lot since I was a student, but at that time it was like gardening. You would plant your little bug onto the plate and then things would grow. And so within a day or two, you'd be like, look, I can actually see what's happening. And so you could see like real life science happening in front of you. I also loved histo because I like body parts. I think that's pretty fun. And now I teach with Roberta. We co-teach the histo course, so the anatomical pathology course. I do the histotechnique part. And what else do I do? Oh, I do the professionalism course, and oh boy, I do a bunch of stuff. Whole bunch of stuff. We do simulation too, so that's part of the professionalism course. What kinds of body fluids are mainly tested during the program? Everything. Absolutely everything. When you get into year 3, you're gonna even test poop. So you're gonna see that it goes into a paint can and a paint shaker, and you're gonna learn so much. And then how much would tuition be for the program? I'm not sure about that one.
Let's see here. I went to the undergraduate cost calculator and I said for a Canadian student, 30 units of course weight a year for our program, tuition for the first year would be about $7,600. And please, from recruitment folks, correct me if I'm off on that, but that's right from the calculator there.
Yes, that sounds right for the tuition. And then if there are any international students in the audience, that number is going to be significantly different for you,
Yes.
looking at roughly $37,000. And then keep in mind that that's just the tuition alone, and there are other costs that are associated with attending university, as well as if you choose to live on campus or not.
Can I just share a little personal tidbit about that? Is that okay? Okay. When I went to university, I was older and I had children, and it was not really something that I probably should have done from a financial perspective, but I am going to tell you that this program was absolutely the best thing I ever did for myself. Absolutely. Because what it did is it catapulted me out of making very low wage. Minimum wage back there was significantly different than it is now, to being in a career that paid me for my brain. It paid me for my thoughts, my wisdom, my knowledge. And it took me out of poverty, and I was able to pay back my student loans. And I had a lot of student loan debt, but I was able to pay it off in full because of the career that I got after. So just on a personal note, yeah, I can't tell people what to do, but I can tell you that my experience was that I was able to do it as a single parent, with 2 children, paying off student loans after, because the career is very rewarding. Yeah, there is a research project you do in year 4. I'll give you an example of one of the research projects I'm supervising this year, because they're not all labby, like in a lab, like with a pipette. They're not all like that. My research project is that I gave to a student is looking at patient engagement and whether the Faculty of Medicine and Dentistry should have a patient and family advisory council, because I'm very interested in patient engagement. So there's lots of different types. There's things that are more labby. You can pick chemistry. You can pick anything you want. And if you're going through your your journey through the program and you find a guest lecturer who's really fascinating and you're really interested in what they do, you can approach them and say, hey, do you take students? And maybe they will. So we're pretty open, and it's to me, it's kind of like the sky's the limit, because there's so many opportunities to do so many things. And do different specializations make different wages? No. Generally speaking, it's a tiered system. So a Tech 1 is somebody who's entering the profession right out of school. A Tech 2 would be somebody who's like a supervisor, and a Tech 3 is like the supervisor of the supervisor. And then there's lab managers. So there's like lots of steps within. And then you can also go on to do things like being a research and development technologist. You can go on to be a research tech that works for a research lab. You can be a research tech in a clinical lab where you're looking at new tests that are going to improve the lives of patients. And you can go on to a variety of different careers. So I did not stay in the lab. I left the lab and I went on to doing simulation training because I'm interested in experiential learning. And then I also went into quality. So I worked for Health Quality Council of Alberta for a long time as well. So like you can do a variety of things. Like Roberta said, some people go into infection control. A lot of our graduates go into quality because that's the one thing that lab techs are exceptionally good at, is detecting quality. And that can lead you to a different wage bracket as well. So yeah, education too, because look at Roberta and I are both educators now. So there's lots of things you can do.
No, absolutely. It's for me has been an excellent degree. You know, ever since I graduated, got my first job, and haven't really looked back. So it can take you a wide variety of places, and you can do a lot of different things with the degree.
All right, we will see if any questions pop up in the next 10 seconds. But if they don't, just for everyone who's still here in the chat so everyone can see, I'm going to just post the short link to access the website for medical laboratory science. And so on there, you will find all of the extra links that I had sent before, specifically about things like the letter of intent or the interviews or the email address. Prerequisite courses can all be navigated from that main web page. So if you have any questions in the future, you can always email medical laboratory science directly, or if, for example, you're a high school student who needs to go into a different U of A program first, you can always email us in recruitment as well, or contact us through the Student Service Center. And no one else has posted another question, so I think we're safe to wrap it up right on time. So huge thank you to Roberta and Rhonda for your knowledge and expertise always. Every year we do this, I, with a business degree, think that I'm one day going to become a medical laboratory scientist. So
There you go.
Do it.
So, thank you both for that. And for those of you that attended, thank you so much for joining us. And we hope to see you maybe in the program in the future. So have a great night, everybody.
Thank you,
Thanks,
everyone.
everybody. Take care. Bye-bye.